Hello, everyone, and welcome to Insight Live, the IT Experts Take. Today, we're going to be talking about modern applications, mainly cutting edge today, obsolete tomorrow, modernizing your applications to stay ahead of the game in today's business world. And we've got some experts with me today that are going to help enhance the conversation to a level that I would say reaches ultimate nerdness, which is what we always shoot for. Thanks, guys. We've got Carm Taglienti, a distinguished engineer with me here at Insight. We've got Ben Westmoreland, who's a pre-sales leader over apps and data. And we've got Ilya Ilyashevsky, manager of strategy and IP. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely.
And so glad to have you with me. I know, Ben doing it from the airport, that's some serious dedication. We appreciate that, bro. So, we talked about modern apps, it's part of when we talk about superpowers at Insight and those kinds of things. So we've said modern apps a lot, but, we kind of get to a point where, does it mean the same thing? What do we talk about when we're talking about modern apps? And I'd like to take, as we always do, kind of kick things off. Let's talk about what we mean when we mean modern apps, because I think we actually mean more than one thing when we say modern apps. Who wants to take a shot?
I'll go first because I kind of manage the portfolio side of it, so I'll take the first hit. But when we talk about modern apps, we really are thinking about, like most people would think about modernization. So when you think modernization, you think change. There are a few things that we like to take into consideration when we think about it. The first one is that, yes, we want to use the latest mature technologies in order to be able to maximize our application estate. And that could be cost efficiencies, performance efficiencies, security efficiencies, a whole number of different things. But that's typically what we mean. The other side I think that you're alluding to is sort of innovation. So it's what are the latest technologies that allow us to innovate? And we also categorize it that way internally a little bit in our portfolio. We talk about application innovation. And so innovation really just sort of hits on that part where we think about, well, what are the new things that are happening now? What are the things that might allow us to be able to sort of get on the roadmap toward, I'll say, the next 4 to 5 years out? Kubernetes was this way probably 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's become more mainstream. But I think for application developers, we really want to get into the game of what's up and coming, what's hot, what should we be focusing on, what's going to provide value to my organization. And I think that's really what we mean by modern applications. To your point, it's a number of different things, but it's sort of like, how do we embrace what's happening in the market? And then how do we make our lives more practical as we think about application development? And I won't even get into AI, but AI is another part of integration into that world too. But
Ben, what do you think about that? What are clients coming to you to want to talk about the most?
Yeah, I mean, with the move to the cloud during COVID, we've seen a lot of clients do that shift into the cloud, and they had to do it in a rapid manner, right? Clients had a distributed workforce that was all of a sudden, remote 100%. And so a lot of the workloads and applications that they have traditionally accessed from an on-premises capability had to shift very quickly. And so a lot of what we're seeing at this point in the marketplace is now we're a few years after COVID. There is going back to work in location, but they've made that journey into the cloud on the initial part of these custom line of business applications and other solutions that they've migrated into the cloud, but there's a cost prohibitive aspect to it. So we're starting to realize, hey, cloud is great, but it's expensive. We thought there would be gains, from moving out of our data center. So they're starting to realize that the application modernization side of it and bringing new innovations so that they can deliver product faster into cloud resources is really key. So we're seeing a lot of uptick in modernizing existing solutions or providing, the leverage of cloud native, cloud serverless type capabilities that really garner the value of cloud so that they can gain efficiency, speed to market, better return on investment, and lower their costs from a cloud perspective.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was talking with one of the hyperscalers yesterday, and we were talking a little bit about that, our own cloud journey at Insight and those things, but I kind of held them a little bit accountable. I was like, when you guys talk about it, you talk about move to the cloud, it's going to be cheaper kind of stuff. But that might come in phase 3. You know, it's if we're just going straight infrastructure as a service to the cloud, I think it's probably not going to be cheaper in the long run. So we got to figure out, you know, what that is. And I think that's possibly what you were referring to, Ben, when like people go to the cloud because it made from an accessibility or resiliency aspect. But long term, we've really got to leverage the capabilities, the platform capabilities maybe, or the other capabilities of the cloud that are going to drive those costs down. Is that fair to say, Carm, Ilya?
Yeah, and I'd also even take a step back further. Like people are moving to the cloud. It makes a lot of sense. You can unlock a lot of potential. But typically what we start with clients is focusing on the business outcome that they're actually trying to achieve, right? Like, so forget the technology, even though we're experts in technology, but take a step back and help them understand, well, what are you truly trying to achieve in your business? And then pair that with the technology that can help enable it and the right cloud services or non-cloud or a hybrid mix. So, you know, we often jump because we're technologists into newest, latest, cutting edge tech. And
GPT. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm hyped about that, and it's hard not to like have a whole pivot conversation because it's really redefined things quite a bit in a way that people can understand. But focus on what are you trying to do as an organization, and let's craft a roadmap with you to help get you there, and then pull in the right technology that matches your needs, not just jump to a certain technology. So I think that's an important aspect is always understand the business case first, and then we'll help guide you as to what is the best matching technology to achieve it.
You know, that when you say that, it sounds completely lucid and like what everybody should do. But when I'm looking at the estate of applications that are in most organizations, it doesn't look like they necessarily took that route originally. I think that's where a lot of folks find themselves kind of stuck, right?
I think where we struggle a lot, and Ilya has an awesome point. I mean, it's basically we need to do modernization for the right reasons, but when we decide to do it, kind of like what Ben was saying, we need to think about, well, what are the tools and capabilities we have that allow us to be able to do it? So how do we make sense out of what is there or what's in the market, or strategies and techniques that can help us? Like, for example, automation. You know, DevOps, DevSecOps now, and, you know, Dev whatever ops. It basically, everything is being automated now. But it's once you decide automation will benefit you or your business, then you select or you identify the technologies that make the most sense. So, and there are a number of products, I won't name drop any products, but in general, automation can provide a lot of benefit if you need it for the right purposes. Like, you don't just say, oh, I need automation, I'm going to go do it. Or I need Kubernetes, so I'm going to go do it. It's more just, well, how are we aligning the technology? And then what is the most mature technology if you're looking for optimization, for example? But if you're not, if you're looking to innovate, you're like, hey, I'm trying to get ahead of my competitors. What innovations are occurring in this space that allow me to be able to move faster, to do better, to achieve more? That's where we kind of draw that distinction in terms of being technologists and business, and then how do we bring it all together? I think it's really critical.
Yeah, and I'll just add another key driver to that we're seeing is that a lot of our clients are running into legacy workload where it may be developed on the technology, and from the business side, hey, it works. Hey, it's lovely. But from the upkeep, the applying new feature development, keeping up with the standards, it becomes prohibitive from skill set wise, like maintaining, our clients maintaining a workforce that is very vested in that technology, or it may be a workforce that they're driving into new technology. They have an expectation to learn the newest, greatest things. So that's part of the investment as well. Though sometimes the business side may not see the need to invest, but from a legacy application code, from support side, even from risk compliance standpoints, there's a need for modernization as well.
Okay, I thought you said this was simple, Jason.
It's simple as that. So bringing up something to that effect, we did a survey, and thanks again for everybody out there that answers our surveys. The one that we asked this week was, what is holding your company back from modernizing your apps? So pretty simple question. And the 4 areas that we had, the 2 that were the highest at 40% each were budget restrictions, an unclear strategy, which I thought was interesting to have such a high. Integration issues was 20%, and security, believe it or not, was 0. And Ilya already kind of made that, it depends on the the group of folks that are answering this question, because I think depending on who you ask, potentially security is one of those things as well. But any comments related? Because it kind of, that goes back to the things that, that Carm, you and Ben just said. You know, something's driving that, with the exception of unclear strategy. Security, we got to get out of our data centers, the workforce automation so that we can reduce workforce, or the type of skill sets required to support a certain technology. All those are kind of driving factors. And back to Ilya's earliest point was, hey, what's the business outcome that you're looking for? Let's start there, and then we'll back into the appropriate technology.
Right. So we typically, and we, you know, as we meet with clients, we kind of take a step back, and we have a playbook that we like to say, hey, we have an app modernization playbook. And within it, we have a bunch of plays that we run to help your organization be successful. But we have to understand, to your point, what is the driving factor? Is it getting off a legacy system and licensing fees? You know, and if that's the case, let's run these plays to be successful, because there's probably a point in time where you re-up and you have to spend millions of dollars. So it's like a date that you need to hit, and then we apply a plan that makes sense for them. Or is it an organizational, hey, we need to get out of tech debt and we don't have the skills anymore, or we maybe acquired another company and now we're merging two stacks together to be run more efficient. And if that's the case, okay, let's be a little bit more agile in our approach. Let's figure out, how do we show value? So to tie it really into, we need a strategy. We often help our clients with their strategy portion, right? As consultants, that's what we do. But really digging into what are you looking to achieve, and let's work on a strategy together, but focus on the ROI, right? Like, and if we have these key metrics that we, on the forefront, before we even get into digging into the code, can hit these metrics, you'll be successful, and you'll kind of be able to get something running and show the value to kind of keep it going. We help shape the strategy in partnership, right? We don't just say, hey, this is how you do it, run our playbook, you're good to go. We actually really partner together to kind of figure out the best fit to win the game together.
Right. And the thing that I would add to that is meeting the client where they are in their cloud journey. So many of our clients are well into their journey, and they're looking for best of breed or practices to drive the strategy that Ilya's mentioning. You know, hey, we're needing a sounding board. We need some expert advices, in the marketplace on how to take their strategy forward, and looking at their applications and defining disposition on those solutions, finding the cost-effective means to focus on those mission-critical aspects, or if they're less valued applications, there may be different journeys they can do. Applications may be in a more of a sunsetting aspect, and there's a different journey versus that mission-critical revenue-generating application. So looking at it from that perspective. And then also comparing it, part of the strategy is like, okay, well, there's a cost to modernize, to really re-envision what an application is. How do you justify that cost? If the business is hypercritical about, investing there. So helping, to Ilya's point around the strategy, is helping clients understand how to get there, prove it to their business leaders, and come up with a business case and help drive in that direction.
So the one thing I think that's really important to understand as well is, while we talk a lot about sort of the business impact side of it, there's also the technology side as well, because most of us, like a lot of folks hopefully listening, are technology centric people. And we think about not just the business ROI, but the technology selection. So in order to be able to achieve those results that we've been describing, it's not so much that you have to be a business person, but we have to understand, what are we looking to accomplish with the particular solution, and then which technologies are best aligned. Do I need a stack framework? Do I need DevOps? Is automation better than not? Am I going to use a container-based solution? Is my technical debt too great for me to even make the transition? It's funny, because I teach courses in advanced computing, and I also talk about ROI. Now, talking to computer scientists about ROI, they're like, their eyes roll. But in the general sense, we all need to understand a certain architecture or a certain approach costs money in order to accomplish. And so you don't have to be a business person, but you do have to understand the implications of the architecture you select. And that's really part of it, I think, for certainly the technical side of the audience that we'd be talking to, is really understand the maturity of the technology. Can you even find resources that can implement according to that technology, or manage and maintain it? Because that's another big part of it, and performance expectations and whatever else. But it's really it's a really interesting business use case, if you will. to be able to make sure that we marry these up. And it all comes back to application modernization and really understanding how to stay current with your application estate.
And I agree with you 1000%. I think what's, based on what everybody's saying, from a business perspective, from a tech perspective, from the actual operationalization of this to get that ROI that you're looking for, it's more than just you interfacing with the infrastructure people or the IT people at an organization. It's more than just interfacing with the lines of business that may want this. And that's the trick, I think. And you can't really be successful to the degree that we're referring to unless there's something where this vision is understood on how it can be affected by the move. You guys following tracking with what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I'll track, and I'll not tangent it, but kind of the people side of change. So we're talking about the IT, we're talking about line of businesses. I mean, let's not forget the users of these applications, right? So this is and the user experience of the applications themselves, because one of my favorite taglines that we tend to use to kind of help set it is, let's first do the research to build the right thing, and then we'll figure out how to build the thing right. So it's really like, what is the right thing? What do users want to do? And oftentimes your legacy apps might have a whole bunch of features over the year that have been piled in, and you're drowning in this tech debt. And we see that all the time, and your users hate using the apps, right? And that's not where companies want to be. The expectation with all the modern day apps that, you open it up, you can quick access, they perform great. They get you your information. They don't have all this bloated menus, that typically enterprise applications may have, because it's just the way that they don't get the same attention. So there's really been a shift in enterprises thinking of like, hey, we want to use our application and our tools that people love using and they like coming to work, and they're not dreading doing these things. And then as much as we can automate or take off their plate or make it simpler so they can get their job done and do other more important work, it's kind of a critical aspect. So I think that's a big role in this that we bring too, is help. Let's do some research, typically with the line of business owners, the IT, the end users, to understand, there's another phrase that we don't want to create ghost products, things that hey, this is how we know they're going to use them. They're going to use them. They're going to love them. We mandate it. But more so like really getting in there and then doing that research and coming back to those stakeholders on the IT and the business side and say, here's the feedback that we got. There's a little bit of a disconnect that we should bridge here. And here's some explorations and examples of how we think we could solve this in a new way that'll result in better uptick. So I think that's an important factor to also weave into the mix.
Totally. Speaking of research, we did some primary research of our own. We just did a survey that we've got a link for you. If you want to click that link that's here, it'll definitely be in the comments later, where we reached out to over 400 leaders in the industry and asked a series of questions. You can see the full report. But one that I thought was interesting, because folks that are listening thinking, oh, well, maybe this doesn't apply to my company. Well, the stat that we got back is that 87% agree that their organization is going to modernize critical applications to this year to ensure their successful transformation. And it seems funny, because is everybody transforming right now? Because that seems to be the thing, right? And with that percentage, it sounds like it's right. So if that's the case, people recognize, business leaders recognize that they've got to. And I guess maybe this question's to Ben. Is there some easy win that you can, is there something where, hey, if we modernize applications, we can always get this? Is there something out there that's a stat that everybody's searching for?
Yeah, I think when we talk about that, we always come in with when we're working with clients, especially if you're new in this journey, is not try to boil the ocean, but what is that quick win, right? Get that first wave of modernization or your applications, so that you can prove that velocity that you're there and you're in this journey to start modernizing it. And and we deal with clients, they may have 5 applications that they're looking to modernize. They may have 5,000. It's varying all between, and so everyone's journey is completely different. And what is that quick win? How do you show that value to the clients? And so that's really where we focus on, is that first wave, that first quick win, get those lessons learned foundationally, lay out the patterns, and start to pave the road, on how they can drive success, and that time frame wise, it varies between clients and the complexity of the workloads. The one thing that we are very suggestive about is not to drive into your most complex mission critical application. If you're new, we gladly will, as a consulting group, help you get that journey if that's your priority. But go for a little bit more quicker win, right? So you show the business value, but also so your people are upskilling, they're learning. We do a lot of co-mentoring, co-development type aspects. So we bring your workforce along as part of that change management aspect of delivery. And that's where we see the biggest wins, is focusing on those first wave applications.
I think that is underestimated how impactful that can be on that whole teach someone to fish kind of approach. That's huge. So I love that approach.
Yeah. And I think it's a little bit of the MVP
good
mindset as well, right? Like, what's the minimal viable product or the minimal lovable product? And when you look at old apps, if we do the research, you might find that we'll throw out 90% of the features that aren't even being used. That's creating that tech debt and the burden of like, hey, there's a bug or there's a regression that comes in our quality assurance that keeps popping up. And it might not just be a lift and shift it to the cloud. It's really like, hey, let's take that. It's critical to your business, but people, turns out, aren't using all the features. And let's modernize it in a whole new way and develop a training program that say, hey, here's a more simple version, still gets you your goal as a business or whatever you're trying to achieve. And we've seen a lot of success in that. And it just seems counterintuitive. But if you can delete parts of that equation as we modernize, it'll help make your business run smoother and then get to doing more innovative stuff because you're just dealing with less of that, the load. So
I would say to that transformation question, I think it's constant. I think organizations that can be adaptable and are constantly transforming. I mean, there's the term mechanical sympathy. The better we design our environments when we get to the point where we modernize, the more we can say replace components without necessarily having to create disruption within our own business. So I think kind of what Ben was talking to, it's like teaching people to fish, but if you look at it from sort of a well-architected perspective and you sort of create the environment, that's really the transformation. It's like the technology and the cultural transformation that allows you to be adaptive within your environment so that when new technologies come along, you can actually embrace them and take advantage of them without this sort of drastic impact to your organization. Like the mainframe, for example, people that are still running mainframes, to try to replace a mainframe, if quote unquote modernize, it's like, holy cow, there's so much technology debt there that it really prevents you from getting to where you want to be. So I think in general, it's really more of a philosophy, but it's also being very, to keep up constant learning about what technologies are coming onto the fray, which ones can impact you the most, and understanding them so that you can embrace them. And then in the context of all of the characteristics we've been talking about, to make sure that you can optimize your business, to innovate, and to do all these great things.
Now, you make a really good point. And I was actually going to bring that up is, it's one thing to be able to know how to do, take an application, a mainframe application, and leverage the cloud to move that workload. But it's, it's why it's hard for organizations to do it themselves, because you've got to be good at doing that. But you also have to know, you have to create a construct and a cultural change. I mean, there's organizational change management. There's all kinds of things. And you've got to be rock stars at understanding the latest and greatest technologies. I mean, anybody who started developing something regarding AI 6 months ago is looking at the ChatGPT stuff and going, we've probably got to shift a little bit. So it's those things that I think that's unique about an organization like Insight, not to pat ourselves on the back or anything, but we've got those folks that are very focused on the emerging tech. We got the folks that understand that legacy, and then the folks that understand the pure cultural business consultative aspects that have to go down to make this thing successful, because those ghost applications do exist. I mean, how tragic would it be for you to go through the efforts of doing something and then it not be useful or accepted by your user base? That's a complete tragedy.
I have no idea what he's talking about. I've never done that.
I'll say one thing that you just hit on, Jason, that's kind of an underpinning part of the modernization journey is that to get to that, whether your goal is to eventually, leverage Chat GPT, we've got like some legal clients that are bringing that up, like, hey, how can we drive efficiency in our business with that? Well, the very first step is to go through that modernization to define scaffolding, like how do you get to all the data that you got, right? And so a lot of these legacy applications, whether it's buried in a mainframe or an access database or SQL, and it's all over the place. Defining these strategies, and we kind of use the term cloud 3.0, in the sense that now you have, SaaS components, you got on-prem components, you got multiple cloud components, you have data scattered. Defining these scaffolding to free your data that has more API endpoints, and true integration platforms to thus drive into data efficiencies, define these large data catalogs and data estates into modern data platforms that you can unleash that analytical perspective or even, AI perspective. So that's a big thing for us that we see in a lot of clients that is an underpinning challenge and goal for app modernization as well. Right.
Right. And I think then what we can develop is on the IP side, accelerators to help our clients get there quicker, right? Once we've done it a few times over, we have the patterns, the best practices, the best tool sets, and we can kind of hit that easy button because we've done it. Whereas everyone's going through it for the first time themselves, or maybe a second time because the first time didn't go so right. But we have these accelerators that are the reference architectures, and they stand up that infrastructure stuff. And then you can get into, all right, let's focus on the application, the use case, and the value of the business rather than spending all this time learning all these new tools. Because as we all know, there's hundreds and hundreds of tools that you can use, but it's like, which ones are the right ones? And a lot of that analysis, back to the point of folks, how do I have a strategy for this, is we'll help on the strategy of here's our recommended tool set or architectures or approaches, because we've seen success with them with other clients that we can then apply to your business to kind of jumpstart those efforts.
Love it. Well, guys, we're probably at a point where we should wrap. And it looked like Ben was signing off already. That's what
that's good. Bye, Ben.
He's catching a flight.
But no, I think, what I like to do is kind of give some, I don't know if it's words of encouragement or if it's where you start, but I like to kind of go around the horn and figure, give some closing remarks. We'll start with Ben since he might have to jump on a flight.
Yeah, and sorry, my internet's a little shady here in that terminal, so bear with me here. But closing remarks. There's lots of clients that are on the journey through app modernization. Maybe they're trying to underline, their data state, may have multiple goals, right, to kind of go through this. I think the key aspect for what Insight and what we really try to differentiate ourselves in is coming with our knowledge, our IP, our approaches that we leverage on many clients, but meet you where you are in your journey, right? We're not going to come with a full template approach, press an easy button, and there you go, client. We want to meet you in your journey, leverage, the partner tooling or vendors that you're currently leveraging, help, enable your staff to grow, and partner together to get in the boat and drive to success. That's the key point for me.
Thanks. Ilya, then we'll end with Carm.
Sure. So one of the things I think that's a cool way to start when you're embarking on this, and we've done it with several clients, is almost like a hackathon, an internal align session where you bring your ideas, right? So you bring people throughout your organization with their pain points, right? Because you're really solving solutions to problems, right? So what are our problems? Like, we know what we think the problems are, but actually bring your different departments in, brainstorm ideas, and then we can help build out quick ROI. So if we solve this problem, what's that ROI? And we can help kind of facilitate those workshops and then prioritize, hey, this looks like a lot of value that we can unlock with a little amount of lift. And this one looks like a bigger project, or we're not going to change the way that the world works. That one's probably not the right one. So we can help kind of guide through a bunch of ideas, but then you also get that buy-in from an organization that, hey, we're shifting, your feedback's important, and there's real business value to unlock. So I really like doing those. It's a great way to get everyone engaged, and they're fun, right? Then you can really say, hey, there's some cool tech we might be able to apply to this thing that can kick it up a level.
It definitely enhances innovation for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I guess I'll go old school a little bit. So it's really understand what you're building before you build it, because we've sort of talked about this already, but clearly, like something like I need ChatGPT, you start with a solution, not really understanding why you need it. And so really understanding the fundamentals of what it is that you're looking to build, why you need to build it, and then aligning the technology. And I know most technologists don't like it that way. They're like, I need to learn Kubernetes, or I need a container-based solution. But the only way to really apply the technology so that you can provide the level of transformation that's required and success, because nothing's worse than sort of trying to bend a technology into a business case that doesn't really fit. And I've done it a few times in my career, which maybe there are those ghost projects a little bit. But in the general sense, I think it's really important for technologists to understand that. It's like, don't have a technology looking for a solution. Make sure that you do understand what it is you're trying to solve. And then, look to, well, the internet's a great source, but there are so many people out there that can help you to understand the maturity of the technology, how best to use that technology to solve your particular problems. And I just think that that's really a good way as a technologist to stay current, to really understand how it is that you can take the approach. Or like, Ilya said, Ben said, I mean, this is our career. We spend our careers understanding technology and how to make sense of it, and then how to align it to customer problems. That's what we do. So I think it's really important to make sure that, tap into resources that are available to you to be able to make sure that you can succeed in this whole application modernization, I'll call it journey.
Love it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I completely agree. I think, from just the 30-minute conversation we've had here, there are a lot of layers to this onion, and, approaching it with the appropriate methodology, focusing on business and outcomes, and then applying the appropriate technology. You could do just about anything, but it's one of those things that, why figure it out yourself? Leverage those who've gone before and have figured out the fastest way to get that ROI that you're looking for. For those of you out there that want to see the survey that we talked about, that want to know more about what we do here at Insight, please visit us at solutions.insight.com. And gentlemen, thanks so much. It was a fun conversation, and we'll probably see you again. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.